going to share my screen. Here we go. And I'm going to share my whole screen. When you share your screen, just a tip for those who are using Zoom, you can click on the share sound and optimize for video clip if you're going to be doing that. And also under the advanced tab, you can select portion of the screen. And so that's what I'm doing. So that allows me to select what the students see and what I see. So right now, I'm going to open up this so you can see a little bit more of my screen. Can you guys see my PowerPoint right now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we are going to be talking about the getting started with the Light of the World lesson. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in presenter view in PowerPoint. I recommend using PowerPoint for your lessons because that allows you to use the audio and the teacher's notes as you present. You can also use it in other formats. So you can use Google Slides or you can use the PDF handouts. But for full function, if you want to be able to use the audio, I recommend using PowerPoint. And I'm going to click here on slideshow presenter view. And now you can see in presenter view, it shows me, I've got my teacher's notes over here on the right, and this is the slide. And I'm just going to change, I've got a little green square in Zoom that I can adjust to allow you guys who are the students to just see part of my screen. So right now, you should be able to see just the slide and not my teacher's notes anymore. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. So on slide number 1, I'm gonna, and I'll pull out again so we can see the teacher's notes. So the teacher's notes for each slide tell you exactly what you need to do. And we've designed this to be made for non-professional teachers because many of the teachers who are in church programs are volunteers who don't have teaching degrees. And so we just give them the notes that they need and try to make the steps for teaching as simple as possible. If you're a more experienced teacher like Marilyn, who has taught for many years around the world, you are free to be a little bit more flexible and, go beyond the basic steps. But for new teachers, they often find it very comforting just to be able to read the teacher's notes and do exactly what it says. So we can see here that in the teacher's notes, we are reading, we see our Bible reading is God is our Father in Matthew 6:9 and John 14. So there's 2 verses in this particular lesson. We're looking at lesson number 3. Our theme is basic needs. Our pronunciation is A and B. So when you see it capitalized, that's the long A sound, A and B. The grammar we're working on is I need. And in preparation, this tells you as a teacher what you need to do is always pray to start out. Pray for yourself, pray for your students. If you're using technology, pray that the technology will work. Pray that their hearts and their minds will be open to receive what they are learning. It's also very helpful if you read the Bible reading beforehand, so you're familiar with it. And preview the slides and song in the lesson. So you can just look, most lessons have about 35 slides or so, and just go through them ahead of your lesson so that there aren't any surprises that come up. And then optional, you are going to bring items that are related to the lesson, if possible. So on this one, it says bring bottled water, food, forks, spoons, and you may want to look at the videos of the Bible verses, depending on the lesson and the technology you have available. You may or may not want to show videos in class, but that's an option. So this is just our title slide, Light of the World, and this is the teacher's notes for the title slide telling you what to do to prepare. So does anybody have questions on the preparation before you get going? Okay.
Lena, do we default to a particular version of the Bible? Is there one Bible we prefer, or is there multiple?
Oh, that's a great question. So what we are using is the easy to read version of the Bible. It's called the ERV, and you can find that at Bible Gateway. It's published by I forgot the publisher. I think it's the Bible Society, but it's available. If you want to buy paper copies, you can get it at Amazon or Christian Books. But that's the version we use because it's written at about a 3rd grade level, and it's got a very limited vocabulary. So the easy read version is recommended. Yeah, thanks so much for that, Anita. One nice thing I wanted to tell you about presenter view is you have a little clock here that tells you how long you've been going. So if you don't want to keep looking at your watch during the lesson, especially when you're doing Zoom calls, this kind of keeps you honest and tells you how long you've been going. I'm actually gonna end this and go back to normal view for a moment. Okay, so that was slide number 1. And on slide number 2, you can see here, we actually have the links to the Bible verses. Now you don't have to, again, you don't have to show these, but I'm just going to show you a demonstration of this. So if you click on these, if you open the hyperlink, it takes you to this website called bible.is. And this website has videos that go along with all of the gospel. So for Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they'll have videos. But that's not the most important part. The most important part is they have almost 2,000 languages available. And so you click on language and you can find your student's language in here. So if we want to find Portuguese, and of course I've got the spinning circle, it's going really slow right now. I think it may be a little bit of overload on my computer because I'm doing Zoom and recording and trying to do this at the same time. But normally you will be able to see the translation. Just put in the language you want and then click on it, and they will translate the Bible into that language. So that's a really nice tool for your students to have. We always want them to be reading the Bible verse in their own language before they try to read it in English. We really want them to be able to understand it in their heart language. That's the language that we can best understand scripture. And so you can see here for Portuguese, we actually have a number of translations of Portuguese, and you can have the audio and text so they can hear it, or the text only, and then you can read that. Oh, Bible League International. I'm sorry, that was the publisher of ERV that I was not remembering at the moment. So that's one resource. Okay. And then when we come to this slide, and I'm going to go to, oops. Let me escape out of there. I wanted to go to presenter view. There we go. And so on slide number 2, it always says pray, review, and preview. And this is when you go over these slides in sequence with your students. This is the slide where I usually say a prayer. And I built this in here with pray so that we remember to pray, because I can't tell you how many times during my lessons we start chit-chatting at the beginning, and then the lesson's halfway over and I go, oh, we forgot to pray. So this is kind of a reminder that we're going to pray. And again, if you look at this teacher's notes, it gives you some suggestions. Pray for your class. And you may want to thank the Lord for being our Father, which is our theme. Check the homework and review. Now, this depends. You can be flexible. Some teachers like to check the homework at the beginning of the lesson. Some teachers ask their students to submit their homework before the lesson. So especially if you're teaching online, you may want your students to email you or text you their homework so you can check that during the week and it doesn't take up a lot of time during your lesson. But whatever works for you and your students is fine. And if you are checking homework, ask the students to read aloud or recite their homework from the last class. So we always have a memory verse we'd like them to recite. If we're, again, you can have your students just send you an audio recording of that during the week between lessons if you want to save time. Check their written work. Make sure they've read Matthew 6:9 and John 4:14 in their native lessons, and review the main points of the previous lesson as you do the homework and ask if there's any questions. So we never want to rush through these lessons. We want our students to be prepared for the next lesson. And so if they really haven't mastered what we learned in the previous lesson, spend time going over that before you jump ahead, because these lessons build upon each other. And if they're stuck and they really don't understand something in lesson 2, they're going to have a lot of trouble in lesson 3.
Melina, I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you have a new class, for example, and there's a few students and you see a pattern, they all got something very mistaken. Do you ever create slides or project their homework somehow on the screen? Or is that not something we do?
Yeah, absolutely. You can always, if you're in a physical classroom, you can write it on the board, or you can create PowerPoint slides and give them additional practice. There's a lot of great websites out there where you can find additional practice on, especially the grammar points that they may be having difficulty with. Yes. And so depending where your class is and on their level, they probably will need additional practice on some things.
Can I ask that you send us the links for the additional practice?
Oh, yes, I can send that to you. I've
Okay.
got a document that's called resources and curriculum, something like that. And we have a list of a whole bunch of great resources for grammar and lessons. And I will send that to you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this part? All right, so then we are ready to go to slide number 3, which is the theme picture. And this is the chance for your student to get warmed up in English and show what they already know. It takes your brain a while to switch over to a new language. And so this is a nice, easy way to transition them into the beginning of the lesson. So by showing a picture, we can see what they already know and what they still need to learn. And this helps you a lot because as a teacher, you don't want them to get bored and you don't want to spend a half hour explaining what a spoon is if they already know what a spoon is, etc. So you will ask them, what do you see? And so I'm going to go ahead. You guys are my students, and I'm going to ask you, what do you see? So let's start with Kimberly. What do you see in this picture, Kimberly?
I see food.
Food, very good. Yes. And Tammy, what do you see?
I see flowers.
Flowers, very nice. Yes, there are flowers. Marilyn, what do you see?
I see a family at a table.
Yes, a family at a table. Terrific. And Kezia, what do you see?
I see cup of coffee.
Cup of coffee. Terrific. Inji, what do you see?
I can see plate.
Plate. Great. Very nice. And let's see. And then I can annotate on my screen and say, Anita, what do you see? Let's see. What is this? What do you see here? A water bottle. Good. I read your lips. You were muted, but I could see a water bottle.
Sorry.
Great, great. Very nice. Now, another thing we can do if you're using Zoom or if you're in a classroom where you're projecting this, you can also have students come up to the picture and point at it. Or since you guys are on Zoom, you can also annotate on the screen. Just as I drew a circle on this, you can all do that by clicking on there's a more button on your screen with 3 dots, and then you should see something that says annotation tools. And then that'll allow you to annotate on the screen. So that's kind of a fun thing you can do. Each person can have a different color and write on it. So after we do this and have them just talk about the picture, you'll notice that some people may only know a couple of words, or they may not know any. That's fine. And some of your students may know a lot. They may be able to say, complete sentences. I see a family eating at a table. And others may only be able to say girl, right? But that's fine because that lets you know where they're at. Then when we go to the next slide, it actually shows us the key vocabulary words for this picture. And so you can go ahead through this, and I'm gonna model them and then have you guys repeat them. So number 1 is spoon. Can you repeat after me? Spoon.
Spoon. Spoon.
Mm.
2, fork. Fork.
Fork.
Fork.
3, table.
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 Good. 4, bottle.
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 Nice. 5, water.
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 Good. 6, food.
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 Very good. Nice job, you guys. Okay. And now I'm going to ask you, Jocelyn, what is this?
Is water. Water.
Very good. And Marilyn, what is this?
That's a fork.
A fork. Excellent. Inji, what is this?
That's a spoon.
Nice. Good job. And Casey, what is this?
It's food.
It's food. Beautiful. Good job. Good job. And so you can always, just to make it more interesting, if you have real objects, you can show those to your students and have them talk about them. And you can also ask them, so does anyone in our class have a cup or a bottle? If you do, can you hold it up? Oh, good. Inji has a cup.
No have.
Jocelyn does not. Oh, good. Tammy has a
No.
glass of water.
Next with me, no.
That's okay. That's okay. So that is the first part of our lesson, the theme picture. And so we're just getting people warmed up. We are helping them to think in English. They get to show off what they already know, which gives them some confidence. Now, one useful thing we do as English teachers is it's sometimes called recasting. So when a student says a word or a sentence that is not perfect, we can correct them subtly by repeating it back to them in a corrected form. So for example, if someone says, if they say, it fork, I can say, yes, it is a fork, right? So I can say yes, sort of affirming that they got it pretty correct, fork, but then correcting their sentence. Instead of it fork, I say it is a fork. Yes, it is a fork. Or if they say spawn, I can say good, it is a spoon. It is a spoon. And then let them repeat again with the corrected pronunciation. So we always want to be encouraging instead of saying, no, that's terrible. We want to, whenever possible, affirm their attempt at getting it right and guide them into the correction. So let me ask you guys, some of you who have been already teaching using theme pictures, are there any problems that you have encountered or difficulties that your students have with the theme pictures at the beginning of the class?
I found some problems with pictures in our curriculum or from our experience. So we are teaching students in developing countries, right? So there are no object in their countries sometimes.
Okay. Mhm.
So sometimes we teaching some kind of dream house, something like that, because we want them to imagine their future or something. At the time, there is no kind of rooms in their life. Or that is a kind of culture difference mixed. So it is not match the object between us and them. So in that case, I found some problems. So yeah, sometimes they never experience object or animals, something like that. So yeah, I found some problems.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, and we need to be sensitive about that, because sometimes it's just a cultural difference, right? Maybe they don't use a fork to eat, they use chopsticks. But sometimes it's also an economic difference, right? So if we're talking about, a microwave oven and, appliances like that, and they don't even have electricity, it's not going to be a particularly relevant lesson for them. And so when we get to that, yes, you're right, Ingy. We need to be sensitive to that, and we want to make sure that they're learning language that is appropriate for their situation. And it also it allows us as teachers to be open to learning about their culture, right? And so if they say, well, we don't have plastic bottles of water, we get water from the well in our village, and we carry it in a clay jar or something, you can ask them, well, where do you get water? Or what do you use to eat? Or does your family sit at a table? Those kind of things, and that can help us learn more. That's a great point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Anyone else?
I was just going to add that it might be helpful in that instance to hopefully have more objects on your part that would be appropriate for them to
Mhm.
fill in instead of using the micro, use what they know.
Mhm. Yeah. And also have them show you, if they have things, especially, if they are in the classroom and they have a bag that they brought to class, they can show you objects in their bag and you can teach them the English words for those. Or in their home, I know when Marilyn is teaching Alexander, there's a chicken, there's a rooster often that's crowing in the background.
Many,
Benny the rooster?
no, many.
Many roosters,
Yeah.
yes. And so then that can become a point of conversation. The rooster is making a noise. Kimberly also says it helps to bring up new vocabulary for discussion. For example, I had to explain whiteboard, green board, blackboard, in the classroom setting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it's going to be a lot different, right? Depending where they are, and that gives us a chance to talk about new things. And a nice thing that you can always do is, because our slides are editable, if you are working with your student, let me go ahead and share my desktop once again. You can write on these slides new words. You can add new text onto them and put in other things that you see in the theme picture. And do you guys see my slides right now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm never sure, because sometimes I see it and you guys can't see it. So what I can always do is create a text box using Zoom or using PowerPoint and write new words on there that students might say. Like someone noticed the flowers in the picture, but flowers wasn't one of the words that was written there. So I can go ahead and write the word flowers and point out the flowers are there, or the coffee is there on the table. And other words they might say, like family, that were not listed in these 6 words we're studying on the slide, but are important and they want to know nonetheless.
Melina, in that situation, do you just point out words? All right, this is lesson 3, but assuming it was lesson 43, would you only point out words that were previously covered, or could they be totally new words that are going to be covered in future lessons?
You know, it can be anything that the students ask about. So if they point to something in the picture and like flowers or fruit, we haven't learned those words yet, but they want to know what's the name of that, you can bring it up. You don't want to go into, if they don't ask about it and it's not in the words, I wouldn't bring it up at this point, because this is really just to determine what they already know and to get them comfortable. But anytime a student is curious, that's a teaching point where you do want to introduce the vocabulary they're interested in.
Thank you.
Sure. Great question. And typically, we don't spend a huge amount of time on the theme picture, because the next slide that we go to is going to be the vocabulary, and that's when we get into studying more vocabulary words. So the whole theme picture process is usually less than 10 minutes of your entire lesson. It's just kind of a warm up. They show off the language they know, they start to get comfortable. And then after that, we'll go on to the next part, which is teaching the vocabulary. I also wanted to talk to you guys about the importance of team teaching. And so it's really wonderful if you can have another teacher with you, or not even a teacher, but an assistant with you in your lessons, for a few reasons. Number one, it means that you are always training up someone else to be able to do this job. So we have 1.5 billion people in the world who are learning English as a second language. So there is never a shortage of students. We need more English teachers. And so if you have someone who's interested in learning more, invite them to sit in on your lesson and act as your helper. a lot of times once people participate by observing your class, they really become intrigued and interested in teaching on their own. So that's one reason we want to be training up new teachers, but also it's great to have a partner to work with. It's a lot of fun because you have somebody to talk with and commiserate with. And if you are sick or on vacation, they can take over the lesson for you. They can help you during the lesson by maybe they can handle the technical parts of Zoom, for example, so you can teach. Or if you have a larger class that's multi-level, if you've got 2 teachers, one can be giving extra help to the students who need it, and the other one can be working with the more advanced people. It's nice because you can have somebody to help check the homework. There is a lot of homework that needs to be checked, and that's time consuming. And so if you have a teaching partner, you can divide that up, and they can check the homework one week and you can do it the next week, or they can do half the students and you can do half the students. But so consider that if you don't right now have a teaching partner, consider getting one. And if you need help, let me know, because we have a number of people who have completed our teacher training and they don't quite feel confident enough to lead a class on their own, but they would love to work with a more experienced teacher and learn that way.
So I have a question, Melina. In doing that, so say you have 4 students and you're doing this all electronically, and there's one student that's really having a difficult time with pronunciation of whatever the sounds and the words are. All right, you have your helping teacher. You want them to split off with them, but if it's all on Zoom, how do you split off?
Well, one thing you can do is breakout rooms.
Okay.
And so I'll just demonstrate real quickly. I'm gonna create 2 breakout rooms. And so you're gonna see a little note that asks you to click to join a breakout room. So just go ahead and do that. Join a breakout room. Okay, so everybody got that? So it's really simple. So I just split us up into 2 different rooms, and then you can do that. You can just put 1 teacher and 1 student in a breakout room if you want to do that. Or the students who need more help, you've got a couple of options. You might offer them additional tutoring. So maybe they might meet with you an extra session during the week. We try to group people of the same level in the same class, but all classes are multi-level. You'll never find, 2 students even that are at exactly the same level. One's going to be higher and one will be lower. And so there's a number of strategies for dealing with that. You can ask the higher level student to be sort of your assistant in demonstrating things and giving them more challenging work. Even as we're doing the theme picture, the very beginning students may only be able to say water, but the more advanced students can say, I see a family eating dinner together. And so letting them do what they are each capable of in the class helps the beginners from getting discouraged and the more advanced ones from getting bored. But when the differences are too great between the groups, we recommend that you start a different class. So in Light of the World, we will eventually have 7 levels that go up from beginning through university preparation. Right now, we just have the beginning level, but starting in September, we'll be creating the next level up, the high beginner level. And so then you could divide people either into the beginner or high beginner. I'm also going to send you that link with our resources so you can see there's a number of other resources you can use for higher level students who are above A1. So that is about all. We're almost done with our time for today, but I want to thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will be meeting again next week at the same time. And next time we will be talking about part 2 of the lesson, which is vocabulary and grammar. So I hope you'll be able to join us for that.